Imagine you're just a regular guy sitting in your car, snacking on a drumstick, when suddenly a car slams into the front of the restaurant, two guys jump out with masks, and one of them is literally wielding a giant sharpened pole. People are screaming, the fryers are bubbling, and you're just trying to figure out if you can still get a refill on your soda while the world ends around you. But then the robbers realise they've made a mistake so incredibly stupid that even the getaway driver is probably reconsidering every life choice he's ever made. This is Peter Welsh and Dwayne Doolan. Back in 2013, these two were living in New South Wales, Australia, specifically around the Dapto area. Now, if you haven't been to Dapto, it's a lovely place, but it's not exactly the highest stakes crime capital of the world. Peter and Dwayne? Well, let's just say these guys weren't exactly the Ocean's 11 of the Southern Hemisphere. They were more like the deeply confused two. Dwayne was 25 at the time, and Peter was 43, which is an age where you'd think he'd have realised that crime usually requires, a brain. These guys had the tactical planning skills of a goldfish in a blender. It was a Tuesday night, which is usually the night people stay in to watch reality TV or contemplate why they bought that gym membership they never use. But Peter and Dwayne, they were feeling ambitious. They were looking at a local Red Rooster, which is an Australian fast food chain that specialises in roast chicken. It's delicious, but it's not exactly the Federal Reserve. No one is retiring on a heist of the chicken salt reserves. Their motive? They seriously loved easy money, or at least the idea of it. The problem was that their execution was drier than a Popeye's biscuit left in the sun for 3 days. Around 10:30 p.m, they decided it was go time. They had a white Ford Falcon, which is basically the official car of people who are about to do something they'll regret. The plan was simple. Drive to the Red Rooster in Unanderra, run in, grab the cash, and vanish into the night like shadows, or, in their case, like very loud, very clumsy shadows. They pulled into the parking lot, but instead of just walking in like normal criminals, they decided to make an entrance. They drove the car right through the front glass doors. Yep, you heard that right. They pulled a Kool-Aid man on a chicken shop. Glass was flying everywhere, the sound was like a bomb going off, and the poor staff behind the counter probably thought a plane had crashed into the mashed potatoes. Peter and Dwayne jumped out of the car, feeling like absolute bosses. Dwayne was the one holding the weapon, which turned out to be a long metal pole. He started waving it around like he was auditioning for a low-budget medieval fantasy movie. "Hand over the cash," they yelled. But here is where the oops moment starts to turn into a full-blown comedy of errors. The staff, who were surprisingly chill considering a car was currently parked in their lobby, looked at the registers. Now, if you've ever worked in fast food, you know that at 10:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, the registers aren't exactly overflowing with gold bars. They had already done the nightly drop. The robbers managed to scramble and grab a whopping 2,500 Australian dollars, or around $2,300. For all that effort, the car, the glass, the sharpened pole, they got enough for a used jet ski and maybe a few months of insurance. But hey, a win is a win, right? They hopped back into their battered Ford Falcon, which was now leaking fluids and looking like it had been through a car compactor and sped away. This is where the walls started closing in, and they didn't even know it. See, when you drive a car through a building, you tend to leave things behind. Things like license plates, car parts, and a very obvious trail of oil. Also, they weren't exactly wearing high-tech disguises. They had masks, sure, but they were about as effective as using a slice of Swiss cheese as a raincoat. As they sped away, the adrenaline was probably pumping. They were probably high-fiving, thinking they were the kings of Dapto. They had $2,300 in their pockets and a story for the ages, but the police were already on it. The New South Wales police don't take kindly to people using cars as battering rams for poultry. The investigation was, well, it wasn't exactly a Sherlock Holmes mystery. It was more like a find the guy with the smashed car mystery. Within a very short amount of time, the police tracked the vehicle. And because Peter and Dwayne weren't exactly criminal masterminds who knew how to wipe a forensic trail, the evidence was everywhere. They left a trail of breadcrumbs that even a blind pigeon could follow. The bust happened faster than you can say quarter, chicken and chips. When the police knocked on the door, I imagine the untouchable lifestyle they'd been enjoying for the last few hours evaporated pretty quickly. The lifestyle they were living was basically just hiding in a house hoping the sirens would go away. During the court case, the details got even more ridiculous. It turned out that the high stakes heist was plagued by the fact that they were both pretty much out of their minds on substances during the planning phase. Shocker, I know. No one sober decides that a Red Rooster is the ultimate score. Their defense lawyers tried to argue that they were remorseful, which is what you say when you realize you're going to be eating prison food instead of roast chicken for the foreseeable future. The judge was not impressed by their Grand Theft Auto reenactment. Dwayne Doolan, the guy with this poll, ended up getting hit with a pretty heavy sentence. He was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. Peter Welsh, the elder statesman of this disaster, also got his fair share of time behind bars. They were sent to a correctional facility in New South Wales to think about why they didn't just apply for a job at the chicken shop instead of driving a car into it. The unravelling was complete. They went from accidental chicken shop robbers to inmates with a really embarrassing story to tell in the yard. Imagine being in prison and someone asks what you're in for. One guy says bank robbery, another says international smuggling, and you have to admit you're there because you drove a Ford Falcon into a Red Rooster for $2,000. Today, they've mostly served their time and faded back into the obscurity they probably should have stayed in from the beginning. There's no movie deal, no glorious legacy, just a very expensive repair bill for a restaurant and a permanent spot on the world's dumbest criminals highlight reel. They wanted to be legends, but they ended up as a cautionary tale for why you should always use the drive-through like a normal person. If you were going to risk 5 years in prison for one final meal, would it be roast chicken, or are you at least going for something with a better exchange rate?